The head coach of the year candidate, I should say, that I was referencing is Dan Quinn. Commanders-Giants. Commanders win this game 27-22. Very close, thanks to a hell of a Daniel Jones performance, which we're going to get to in a second. But first, we got to talk about the top 5 graded players for the Washington Commanders. Wide receiver Noah Brown at the very top of the list with a 79.0. Linebacker Bobby Wagner with a 78.9. Edge rusher Dorrance Armstrong a 78.8. Running back Austin Eckler with a 78.7. And then offensive tackle Brandon Coleman with a 78.6. Jaden Daniels in this game an 88.2 on his way, it feels like right now, to potentially offensive rookie of the year. Got to put potentially, but I mean, it feels like he's the runaway favorite at this point. New York Giants, if we flip it to the other side, Dexter Lawrence with a 77.5, safety Jason Pinnock with a 76.3, cornerback Andrew Phillips with a 74.7, wide receiver Malik Neighbors 72.0, linebacker Bobby Okereke with a 71.9, and then Daniel Jones 91.5 PFF grade in this one. Outdueled Jaden Daniels. That's what I heard.
Oh, you heard wrong.
All right, Dalton.
It said it
what's
right
the
there.
stat that told the story here?
Daniel Jones was really good, but it is so hard to beat the Washington Commanders.
It is, man.
I'll get to my weekly Daniels rant in a minute, but the Commanders are so good at just playing clean football. It's week in and week out. You know, they've only turned the ball over 3 times the entire season.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
It was once the interception up the seam he threw against the Cardinals, and there was 2 turnovers against the Browns in a game they won anyway. They haven't turned the ball over the last 4 games, and they've only done it 3 times all season. This game, no turnovers for the 4th straight game. No sacks allowed. Take out kneel downs. Only 3 plays all game that lost yardage. Only 5 penalties. They are the NFL's highest graded offense in short yardage situations because everything they can do on the ground and through the air. And they've scored now through, 9 games? Yeah, they're 7-2, 9 games. They've scored some sort of points on 59.5% of their drives. The next closest is the Ravens, right around 51. This team just doesn't screw it up, ever. They make the level of execution, even when something doesn't go completely right, to just be able to get some sort of positive yardage. I think this is a conversation that's been had a lot about Kansas City, how it just feels like, even if they're not great and they're not that explosive, they don't do anything wrong. And on first down, they just, Mahomes never takes a first down sack, or they're always in 2nd and 6 at the very least. This Washington team does all of those same things. They just don't, offensively, they don't screw anything up. The Giants, to your point, and Daniel Jones, I thought they played a pretty darn good football game.
They did.
And you just can't beat this Washington team right now. The first game, against Tampa, it's Todd Bowles against a rookie in his first game. Okay, it happens. Todd Bowles is going to throw weird shit at you, right? The only other game they've lost was the Baltimore game, and I think we can agree, even though the records are what they are, that the Ravens are just better than the Commanders, right? And that's what it is. If you're going to beat this Commanders team the way they're playing, you just have to have a better football team than them, because they're not going to screw it up. Here and there, a couple of times they've gotten stalled in the red zone a little bit. Okay, that's something to work on. The Bears game, the first Giants game when they beat them anyway, but they don't give you anything. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, I'll just go on the Jaden Daniels rant now. What makes him really good and what got him drafted 2nd overall, okay, is, I shouldn't even say that second part. What makes him really good is how explosive he is, right? The dual threat stuff, he's accurate, he can make the throws, all the physical stuff he's proven. What makes him special is the stat I keep throwing out. When he came out of college, he had the best turnover-worthy play rate of any Power 5 quarterback that we've tracked since 2014. He makes the explosive happen without ever giving the football away. I don't know how you stop that at this point, whether it's on the ground or through the air, because you can't force it. Usually, it's like the Josh Allen, Brett Favre, whatever gunslinger you want to go with, where a more explosive quarterback is going to make mistakes because he's taking chances. Somehow he makes all these explosive plays and makes all the right reads and takes no chances with the football. And as long as he doesn't take chances with his body, like we saw last week and getting hurt, or I should say 2 weeks ago, and take an injury because, he's got a slim build to him. We know that. Don't take too many hits. Otherwise, when he's on the field, just like it was at LSU, there's really not an answer. You just have to go in there and outplay the rest of his football team. Because, why'd the Ravens win? They stopped the run. They stopped Brian Robinson, the rest of the guys. But Jaden wasn't even bad in that game. The fact that he can be so explosive and so safe with the football makes Washington really hard to beat.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. My side of the total story is on the other side of things because I wanted to open up with what you were talking about because it's the stat that told the story for why the Commanders won the football game. I want to tell the stat that told the story of why this game was even close because it felt like it wasn't even supposed to be close, but it was close because of Daniel Jones. Like, this is one of the best Daniel Jones games that you're going to see. Was it perfect? No, but damn, for what Daniel Jones is as a quarterback, this is basically as good as it's going to get. 91.6 passing grade, one big-time throw, 0 turnover-worthy plays. So if you want to sit here and go like, okay, it was only one big-time throw, again, this is within the realm of what Daniel Jones is going to be able to give you. One big-time throw, 0 turnover-worthy plays. Wide receivers had 3 drops in this when he had a 92.1 adjusted completion percentage. This guy was on it all day. 79.1 passing grade under pressure, which is fantastic. 7 rushing attempts, 6 first downs on those 7 rushing attempts, and an 89.4 rushing grade in this game. He could not give you more, realistically. I mean, sure, okay, if you want to say like, I would have rather had a couple of extra big-time throws. Yeah, I'd like to have a couple of extra $1 million in my bank account. Like, of course, like everybody wants that.
What do you mean extra?
It's just, yeah, you heard me right. You heard me right.
Some people get extras of millions of dollars. Trevor gets a couple extra millions.
I know who's
sometimes.
paying for the wings tonight.
Well, maybe you showed up to do the show more than once a year. Maybe you'd be able to throw the word extra in there too. No, but look, of course we would want it to be a little bit better in the big time throw section, but it's not because that's just not how Daniel Jones is. So to me, this was as if we were really having a debate at this point of whether or not Daniel Jones is the guy or he's going to be on the team next year. It really doesn't feel like that's going to be the case. But Daniel Jones basically gave you the best that he's going to give you. With this roster currently constructed the way that it is, and realistically what you could probably expect maybe if you changed and upgraded the roster a little bit from last year as well. Really good rookie class from Joe Shane. I know it wasn't great the first couple of drafts, but to get this game from Daniel Jones and to lose basically tells you everything that you need to know about the New York Giants. They are destined for a top 8 pick. It's just a matter of whether they're going to get top 5 or top 3 at this point. And that's the way that I feel about that. And why it was a close game. It was closer than I thought it was going to be. But even then, it still kind of wasn't enough here. So,
can I give one shout out?
Sure.
Noah Brown, receiver.
Top
had
of
a
the
good,
list
yeah, good grade. I think that he's always been one of my favorite players, and he's getting to kind of live out his dream of being like an actual NFL wide receiver. Because I'm serious, in Dallas.
Didn't he play with Stroud?
Yeah, in Dallas and then in Houston last year.
Oh, okay. All right.
So what his role in those two teams was this kind of hybrid, almost like a hybrid tight end receiver, and like it allowed those two offenses to unlock a lot of what they wanted to do by having a guy who could play receiver but also block defensive ends and linebackers and stuff like that. That's not really his role anymore. That's not really a role that Cliff Kingsbury has in this offense. So him going out there and contributing as like a guy who runs like real routes and does all that stuff, I'm happy for him. Noah Brown.
I agree with that. Big time. They're looking for it. Look, you got a kind of a modest game out of Terry McLaurin in this game, and you still found a way to score 27 points and win it. I think it's great stuff.
My most impressive, there were a couple that I could have gone with, but Austin Eckler showing a little bit of juice here. It was nice.
Austin Eckler,
for this team.
This is what happened. I don't know. There's some sort of black magic going on.
Okay.
Out of Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen last year on the Los Angeles Chargers, there was one football player. Out of the two of them, there was like one football player, and it was Keenan Allen. A year later, out of the two of them, there was one football player, but it's Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler took that juice from that he lost last year, that he was running so slow. I know there were some injuries. He looks real. He looks fast. He looks quick. He looks like everything that Keenan Allen was last year and isn't this year for the Bears.
I think it's in part, and he admitted this in the offseason when he was in free agency. Eckler said, he goes, look, I'm not a guy who can get 300 touches anymore. He goes, he even admitted, he goes, I'm wore out doing that. I can't. I got to get as part of a rotation. And what they have going right now with Brian Robinson, even though he didn't play yesterday, with Austin Eckler, with even Jeremy McNichols, who's given him. So that committee, and even I've talked over and over about Jaden Daniels and the holes that he opens in the go. You check the tape. Look at how many times that they run that cutback. They get that cutback in these zone plays inside of that read option guy, because he has to freeze on Daniels. There's so much more space to work with than in an offense, a rushing offense like the Chargers last year, who they didn't block a soul anyway, and Herbert's not really an option threat like that. It adds so much having Daniels as a part of that run game in this offense, and the fact that Eckler per game does not have to get as many touches as he used to.
My most disappointing in this one is the New York Giants, who had a season low 8 pressures as a team.
How is that different than any week? The most disappointing team in any game that the Giants play are the New York Giants.
Oh, did I say the Giants? Did I not say the Giants?
I mean, you go more specific.
Oh, okay, all right,
with it.
sorry.
You were
I was already on it.
You were probably getting there. You were a little harsh up front.
The most disappointing team for the New York Giants is the New York Giants, which is obviously true. But I'm talking about the defensive line specifically. And I think that was the most disappointing group because that's supposed to be the strength of your team. They had a season low 8 pressures in this one. Dexter Lawrence had a below 10% pass rush win percentage. Azeez Ojulari did as well. Brian Burns was a little bit over 10%, but still it really didn't yield itself in any way, shape, or form when it came to pass rushing production. So this is supposed to be the strength of your team. And Washington Commanders offensive line, we went into this year thinking that this was going to be an Achilles heel for this team, and it's not. It is a strength. They are one of the top 10 offensive lines in the NFL, and I think they showcased it yesterday. So most disappointing or anything else?
Yeah, well, I'll add to the Commanders. You talked about the offensive line. This is a situation where what they did. Now, Cosby's a good player. They paid him in the offseason or before the season started. They went out and they just got good enough players, and that's sometimes enough, especially when you have some dynamic players and the run game, like you said, can be more dynamic because of the quarterback. But that's just enough to be able to have a coherent unit rather than one guy who's really good and the rest of them stuck. And that's a PFF talking point. It's been like that for a long time.
Creep back to average,
right? And that's what they did, getting the center, getting the Allegretti and Biotish and all those guys, and Cosby being a good player. Like, that's been enough, and it's going to take him to the playoffs.
Before we move on?
I have Tyler Nubin, just struggled for the second straight week, kind of hitting that rookie wall a little bit. Missed 3 tackles, couple of big catches he allowed in the fourth quarter, but honestly, I almost put nothing for most disappointing. I thought this was just a pretty good football team where the better team won.